are we doing today? I am extremely excited to have not only one of my pivotal mentors on here with me, who has really helped me see property and business from a different angle, but also has genuinely become a special friend, and that is Gillie Barlow. Hi Gillie, how are you this morning?
I'm very well, Emma. Very excited to be on once again another of your incredible chat shows as I see them. Yes, great to be here.
Glamorous, doesn't it? A chat show.
Yeah.
Brilliant. I love it. Well, Gillie, for those people who perhaps haven't come across you yet, would you mind just giving yourself a quick introduction?
3 of my children. I have 3 boys. Not all of them live with me now, but I seem to have a menage do live with me. So yeah, that's me. I live in Oxford and have lived here pretty much all my life.
Amazing, amazing. So I suppose where I had heard of Gillie sort of here and there in my journey of property, and I started with rent to rent serviced accommodation. And for me, the next logical step with rent to rent was to go to purchase lease options, because literally all you're doing is you're still renting it, but you're just agreeing to buy it for a certain price in the future. So I was kind of searching around who might be able to help me with that. And it was there wasn't a lot that I felt gave really great instruction. Anyway, somebody recommended Gillie, and I jumped on her course, and it was absolutely brilliant. In fact, for whatever reason, I did it a number of times to really start getting it into my head. And that was kind of my initial journey of meeting Gillie. And then actually I joined her year-long program. And yeah, I really love the way Gillie looks at things from quite a different angle. And you'll hear me talking about this. There are people that I really am attracted to. They see things differently. And I think that works for me too, because I also kind of don't necessarily see things the same. And what really struck me with Gillie is this just absolute zest that everything, it's almost like the saying, if you believe and conceive, you can achieve. Like Gillie just thinks that. It's like, no matter what, if you can't do it yourself, you can find somebody else. So yeah, that's kind of how I met Gillie. So Gillie, let's kind of jump in and hear a little bit about your background, how you got into property, and then we'll move on into, purchase lease options and all of those as well.
Okay, absolutely brilliant. So Emma, don't forget, this is me that's speaking. So if you need to interject and shut me up, you just do that, okay? So yeah, I was, as I said before, born near Oxfordshire and lived here all my life. And when Sarah and I went to school, my identical twin and I, we were literally the worst of the worst. We were totally non-academic. We became an issue because they couldn't cope with the fact that we were identical twins, and so on. So we left at 16. And bizarrely enough, even though I had a very volatile upbringing, I believed in myself. Goodness knows where that came from, but it was a real blessing. And I was excited by life. Sarah was always a little bit of the sad one, and I was generally always happy most of the time. And I just saw life as a gift from a very young age, even though I didn't realize that at the time. Looking back retrospectively, I really believed that there was something out there for me, irrespective of whether I was pretty rubbish at most things, and had been brought up to believe that. So when I was 21, just before then, actually, we all went off to Kenya because my father semi-retired, and mum and dad had been born and brought up in Kenya and had met out there. My mother was born up on an asparagus farm, of all things, and my father was in the civil service, and they had met, and they wanted to take us back to where they were, where they met and where they got married, etc., etc. While we were out there, the 4 girls went on an overland trip to a place called Turkana, which is like the desert of Kenya. And while we were in Turkana, the guy running the safari company had said that he ran a safari in the off season in the Kalahari Desert, and his cook had rolled the vehicle and run away. Anyway, long story short, I ended up flying out to the Kalahari Desert at the age of 21, and went and helped to run safaris. So I was very young, absolutely, completely terrified. But I was always encouraged by one of the two women in my life that have really inspired me. And that's a lady called Jackie Pullinger, who at the age of 22, the year I was born, had gone off to Hong Kong on a boat because nobody had sponsored her or helped or supported her because she didn't have a degree. She could only afford a one-way ticket. And she went at the age of 22 to help with the triad gangs and the drug addicts in the back streets of Hong Kong. And I thought to myself, goodness gracious, if she can do that, I can certainly go off to the Kalahari Desert and help run safaris. So that's what I did. And while I was out there, I had a dream, and the dream was about, I know it's a bit surreal, but it was. The dream was about a mountain house and disabled children. And I was very arrogant and said, give me 5 years and I'll have a place in the mountains. Well, 2 years later, I acquired my first property. I'd come home. I was now gutting fish in a fish farm. And the reason I tell you this, and I want to tell people this, Emma, is because I want them to understand that this was with nothing. So I was gutting fish as a bit of a, I don't want to say pleb, although I just said it. I was just not doing very much, and I had no qualifications. I'd had a great experience, but I ended up acquiring a chalet. Notice I say the word acquiring, not buying, 2 years later, which I still have today. The following summer, I took my first group of disabled children out there. That won the Childline Award for Great Britain in 1996. And I continued to run that for many years until I had a large family myself. So that's how I first got into property. And I think that the thing that I want people to really hear is my attitude at the time. Believe you me, my attitude has gone up and down like a yo-yo since, because we're all human and we go through things and we have stories to tell. But at the time, my attitude was, I'm going to do it. The question is how. And I always say to people that I'm going to do it bit is the steep climb, because it's all in our heads. But once you get to that point of going, yeah, I'm going to do this, how you're going to do it is the exciting part. It's the creative part. And so I became very creative in the way that I did deals because I had no money. So even in France, I couldn't buy that place. Now, in those days, which was 1989, in the sort of year of the era of the dinosaur, they weren't teaching property. There was no teachers out there. There was nobody explaining what a purchase lease option was or a rent to rent. You were either an estate agent or a letting agent. And so I sort of devised strategies myself. Obviously, I only devised them for me because they were strategies that had been being used for many years, but they weren't being taught, so no one taught me. So in my view, I devised strategies and other strategies as well to help people acquire property without having to have money. And that's what I did. Now, some years later, when I married an accountant. I'm not married to him anymore. And had I spent any money, I would have been hung or shot at dawn. So I learned ways to, again, mitigate risk. And I teach people how, with very large deals, to have no risk in deals, because had I created any risk, as I said, I would have not probably been here today. So it was very exciting in that everything that I teach, I sort of devised myself, albeit they were strategies that existed before, but nobody was teaching. So that's how I got into property.
Oh, it's amazing, Gillie. And I think I sort of highlighted a couple of things for me I just wanted to bring back to you. And I really see it in you is this belief. And as you've said, the one thing that can happen in life is things happen to us, but it's to be aware that things happen to everyone. So it's not just you, Gillie, that things have happened to. It's not just me. And as hard and as ghouling as that might be when they're happening to us, they do happen to everyone. But if you're sat in your little house and in your little box, not as many things happen to you. And that's where we can feel safe. But as soon as, like you did, I mean, you were there crazy, going abroad, going and doing all these kind of mad things, listening to basically a dream, which, could be construed as an intuition, an act of God, whatever your parameters are, you actually listened to it. And that's where a lot of us might have gone, oh, I'm really, of course I'm not going to listen to that. That's absolutely crackers. So you then, talking about having this belief, but alongside that, having this attitude that you can do. And whatever it is, you will find a way. And that's what I find so wonderful. And in fact, we were just talking, weren't we, just before the start, is you know, when you are kind of taught things, sometimes it's really hard to relay that into your own personal life, isn't it? And I think that's something that you do really well, Gillie, is that you are able to kind of sort of see things and help people kind of see it themselves, how they can potentially find a solution, whether it's within themselves or whether it's JVing or whether it's, you know, learning something new, whatever it is. Generally, if you can sort of conceive it, there is a way of you doing that. So yeah, I absolutely love your story, and the whole, you've seen such a lovely array of things through your life, and I think that enables us, doesn't it? I suppose when you saw, you know, what you saw in Kenya and along the way, that enables you to think, well, wow, if other people can achieve things, why not me? Why not me? And I think that's a really, really powerful one.
Yeah.
So talk us a bit more. So you spoke about and I'm so thankful that I was in the era that I am, with like my mobile phone, with training courses, because I'm not sure I would ever manage to get to where, you know, you guys, there's, you know, a lot of kind of people, well, not that many, but a few who managed to kind of educate themselves through, you know, just thinking creatively, basically, and came up with these kind of solutions of, and I love it. And that's the word I use all the time, is acquiring, especially in my letters, which you also taught me. So yeah, talk us through how you came across this first property that you acquired in the mountains.
Okay, so 2 years after I got back from Africa, the Kalahari Desert, I'd gone skiing with a group of 12 people, and including my parents, actually. And while we were there, we'd had an incident on the mountain. My sister wasn't very well, and I decided not to go back up there. And I went into an estate agent where I literally spoke pidgin French, not really even pidgin French. And I expected them to treat me like I'd been treated when I went into a Volvo garage to get a company car, you know, a couple of years earlier. And they didn't. They were quite serious. And I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. I mean, I looked about 14. So this was in 1980. This was in 1987 or 1988. And yeah, I couldn't believe they took me seriously. And what happened was I did then take one of the party into the estate agent who spoke fluent French, just so that I could double check I'd understood what I thought I'd understood. And a few hours later, I was found in a cafe with my Filofax, which again tells everybody of my age. And I was like writing figures down. And they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, I'm just jotting down some figures because, you know, I'm just having a think and look and just playing around with some figures." And they said, "Why? Gillie, you can't afford the door of a car. Why are you in there contemplating, wasting time?" I said, "Well, you know, that's just what I want to do." And I think the message there to people is, be really careful who you listen to, because if I had taken on board what those people who loved me, you know, cared for me, said, I wouldn't have that chalet. And what would the future have held? I don't know. I'm not saying I wouldn't have got into property, but, you know, that chalet has been a monumental part of my journey. And the funny thing was, the guy that owned the ski company that we were with was coming into town that evening. So I thought, I'm just going to sit next to him at dinner. So I sat next to him and I said, "Look, if I was to get a property in this resort, would you take it for a period of time in the winter?" "Definitely," he said, "as long as it's 4 bedrooms as a minimum." So when I got home, they said the 4-bedroomed house was gone, but there was a 6-bedroom one left. So I thought, it doesn't really matter because I can't afford half a bedroom. So based on the way I'm planning to do this, you know, it doesn't make any, it's like Monopoly, isn't it? It doesn't really matter. So I ended up signing a contract with the ski guy in the back of a van at a motocross stadium in Oxford, where his son was doing some motocross, and ended up with this chalet based on a contract and the ability to do like something very similar to an option. Now, some months later, I got told, because this was a chalet that was being built. It was like a little estate that was being built. And they rang me to say, I'm really sorry, but the chalet won't be ready in time. So I sort of rang the ski company thinking they'd pull out of the deal. And they said, oh, by the way, we found out the chalet won't be ready. So we're basically putting an extra thing in the brochure to state that it won't be available till February. And I describe it like this to people, Emma. My journey has been like a river between two riverbanks, and across that river are stepping stones. And this is how I saw it back then when I was trying to get the chalet, because obviously a number of things happened that set me back. And it was, the stepping stones were sometimes flat and sometimes they were really pointed. And when they were really pointed, I used to think, well, never mind. It's been a really good journey. I've learned a lot. This is not about the destination. It is about the journey. It is about learning. And I don't know how I was wise then at thinking that, but I did. Then I'd get to a flat stone, but somehow the door opened. I went in there thinking, this is going to be the end of the journey. And it opened. And then sometimes the rocks would be really flat and I'd nearly drown through pride and arrogance. And it was a massive learning. Now I did get to the other side and it's been a real blessing. But what I learned was you can't necessarily determine that the line of stones will be a completely straight line. Sometimes you are deviated. And on your journey in property, it's really important to remember that, because if you're, like a mule, or you're sort of totally stuck in your ways and dogmatic about exactly which way you've got to go, you could end up trampling on people, losing your friends, having nobody in your world to get to where you want to get to. However, if you allow yourself to be directed as you need to be, you may not get to exactly the same place on the other side of the river as you thought you were going to. It could be less money, it could be more money, but the difference is you'll end up far more fulfilled with people that want to help you, support you and surround you, that are good. So it's really important to understand that it is all about the journey. We have to stop fixating on what we want and not what we want, but what we're determined to get. It's really good to have determination, but if you're completely fixated, what you're doing is you're chasing money. What you're doing is you're saying, I will cross anything and I will trample on anyone to get what I want. This is not what it's about. And what happens is we end up coming from the wrong place. We end up chasing something rather than drawing stuff to us and working hard to get where we need to get and learning on the way in our journey. Because if the destination is all that matters and the journey doesn't, we end up with different results. And even if you get what you aim to get, you probably will find you're not fulfilled, you're not content, and you're just chasing more and more and more. So that's a little bit of how I got the chalet. There was a lot more to it, as you can probably imagine. I was I ended up purchasing it obviously in the end. And back in those days, I'd never met the bank, never met them, not at all. To this day, I never met them. And then I refinanced to do some more options, etc., in other countries and buy land in other countries and so on. So yeah, it was a brilliant start to my property journey.
Amazing. And I think that's a really key one, isn't it? That sometimes if we're too fixated, I sort of touched on it earlier, and don't kind of listen to our intuition or see what's around us, we actually miss. So I love the story of the person who's drowning in the middle of the ocean, and he shouts up to God, save me, and a boat comes past and says, here you go. And he says, no, God's going to save me. And then, and another, a big liner comes past and he still doesn't get in. You have to know that it might not look like what you think it's going to be, but be really open to those other kind of opportunities that might strike up. And in fact, even just speaking to you this morning, it's made me my brain has started worrying about some of the things that we've spoken about in the past. And I've suddenly thought, oh, you know what, that might actually be relevant to this person that I've met. So it's really interesting, always looking at your kind of, I suppose, your pot of knowledge, but being really open to what people are bringing to you, who you're meeting, what they're talking about. And I think you're the absolute epitome of that, is just being completely sort of open and thinking, just because there's a wall there doesn't mean that you can't go through the door that's just hidden up the road. And I think a lot of us miss that door along the journey. So
I think it's about creativity, isn't it? And I think
yeah.
that a lot of the time people can't be creative because they don't have clarity. And my 5 C's, Emma, that the first and most important thing I believe in property is clarity. If you don't have clarity of different subjects, clarity of what you want, clarity of what due diligence is, clarity of area, clarity of strategy, clarity of all these clarity of self, clarity of goals. If you don't have clarity in understanding a topic or a strategy, or you have any doubts in the back of your head, anything that might be confusion, because of course that's the opposite to clarity, you are playing with fire, because that's when we make wrong decisions. Wrong decisions for ourselves, wrong decisions for deals, wrong decisions for strategies, for area, for everything. So people need to understand that clarity isn't like 17 months of counselling. It's understanding where you're confused, finding out all the areas of confusion where you're pretending you're not, maybe. So those little things in the back of your head that go, I'm not really sure about that. You find clarity in those areas. You find somebody to help you. I'm very happy to help, where you just literally get every single area of confusion ended. It all becomes clarity, so that where you are now, you have clarity on everything, so that when you take a step and you find you're in a bit of confusion, all you've got to do is gain clarity in that space, so that when you once you've got clarity, you'll be confident. And guess what you gain with confidence? The ability to be creative. And this creativity is monumental in a world where there is competition. There's many people doing property. Believe you me, more people aren't. But when you're in the world of property, you feel like many people are. And you feel like you can't stack deals. I put an article out this week on the fact that if I got a penny for everybody that rang me that says, Gillie, nothing stacks, I'd be a far wealthier woman now. And it's working out why it's not stacking. And 90% of the time, by the way, I make up all my statistics, but 90% of the time, the reason it doesn't stack is because they don't know how to be creative. They don't know how to problem solve something. They don't know how to gain a solution. Now, I'm not stating that every property you'll be able to do by finding a solution to make enough money. Of course I'm not. But many people miss out on deals because they look at them, they go, it doesn't stack. And they don't know how to bring that creative arm out in order to be a person who has solutions to a strategy. So it's really, really important to understand creativity in the world of property.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I think it was definitely through sort of, our sort of learnings that got me to the stage that I just absolutely love. When I was doing my huge push to get the hotel, which obviously you helped me with a purchase lease option. So obviously, met a huge number, quite a large number of people. There was lots of offering on deals, and then lots of sitting in a cafe going, right, how am I going to do this? How's this going to work? And it's amazing when you actually just sit there. And I used to love it. I had this amazing cafe that I used to love going to. It felt like a bit of a treat. And you'd sit there and just go, right, we're not leaving until, we've come up with some ideas. And actually, when you start throwing out crazier ideas, suddenly something that seemed really crazy, actually you think, well, you know what, there's parts and elements of that really could work.
Yeah.
So I really love that. And that's why I'm a huge fan of Think and Grow Rich and, Bob Proctor and all these people. And one of the big things for them is masterminding. And I know, Gillie, you're the same. Everyone come together, bashing heads. And it's incredible what can come from that. So, yeah, I absolutely love that whole sort of creativity, because I think I used to think that I wasn't creative because I can't draw or, the archetypal creativity. But actually, I am, really creative, but in a sense when you look at different things and you come up with different ideas. So yeah, that's really interesting. So Gillie, let's talk a bit more about your purchase lease options. I know that obviously you then did go into property, and you were extremely or are extremely successful, did some great deals. I know I visited a few of your deals as well. You've trained your children, so you were a massive inspiration for me with my kids, and certainly I'm pushing them every step of the way to be getting into property as well. So yeah, just talk us a bit more through your journey and how the sort of purchase lease option thing came about too.
Okay, so as I said, purchase lease options, I started doing them. I didn't even know that was what they were called. So I'd done France. I never called it a purchase lease option. I then came to I was living in the UK, and I decided to acquire a piece of land. And I said to the owner, if you give me 10 years to pay it off, I will give you 3 times its value. And I had no idea that a pound was exchanged and a purchase lease option was done through the solicitors, but it was. I was then able to build a house with no money on the land, because the bank realised that the value of it would far exceed what the cost was going to be. So I got a full mortgage on a house that I built on the land. Over the 10 years, I was able to refinance and pay the money to the landowner, and had no idea that that's what they called a purchase lease option. So I did, that was my second one. The first house I did as a purchase lease option was about 15 years ago, or maybe a bit longer than that. I still own that house today. There's not every single option I've done, I've always exercised. So all of them I've exercised. I'm in the middle of, and the one that I was going to say the wonderful thing is actually, but that sounds a bit arrogant. The thing is with me is that I'm still doing them. So I'm in the middle of doing an option in Italy, which I'd love to show you, Emma, when we meet. It's a beautiful property that you've seen it actually, because I offered it to all of you on the course. Many times I offered it to people. It was a lady who did one of my year-long programs who was selling it. She bought it 25 years ago with her husband in the hopes of doing it up, and they hadn't had time to go out there to do it up. It's on 3.5 hectares. It's got 3 floors, and eventually we'll have 8 triple bedrooms, so sleep 24, whatever that is. And it will have a tennis court and a swimming pool. It's already got the middle floor done. We did an option 4 years ago where we paid £1. We paid nothing else, and we're just buying it now for £80,000. So it's completely ridiculous, worth more than that now probably, but that's not really relevant. It's just a very, very good deal. But that was an option. So I do options in other countries. My youngest pupil, my youngest delegate or mentee was a 13-year-old girl, and her father did an option last year in Greece on the island of Corfu. So we have to be careful in other countries when we're doing options if they're with people who live out there, because we've got to be sure that they see the deal as, and it's all done so that it's watertight in contracts with solicitors. The people I bought the Italian place from were British, so it was very, very easy. So
just in case anyone's listening is not completely sure what a purchase lease option is, do you mind just
of course,
clarifying that for us?
Yeah, of course. So first of all, the terminology of a purchase lease option is to have the option to purchase a property, but not the obligation. So you have the rights to purchase it for a time that is agreed, but you do not have to, so you can walk away. And I know some of you are probably sitting there saying, who on earth in their right mind would agree to that? But believe you me, there are many, many people who'd bite your arm off right now for a purchase lease option. So it's made up of 3 things. And this is where people overcomplicate it. I wrote a book that I think that Emma read called Understand Your Truth to Find Success. And it's all about mindset. And one of the problems we encounter with purchase lease options is people think it's too good to be true. It's all the mindset stuff. And in actual fact, the only criteria any person needs is to have the right mindset, because you don't need money. You might need some money, but you don't need money yourself. And often you don't need any money. So it's available to everybody. I love it because it's all inclusive. Instead of being for the wealthy or the contractor, property is now for everybody who has the right mindset. So It starts with just 3 things, and people overcomplicate it. So I want you to understand these 3 things are what make up a standard option. First of all, it's what you decide you can pay for the property in the event you're going to buy it. So at the very beginning, set in stone is a price. So I generally go for the asking price or maybe a bit more, unless it's on for ridiculously too much money, very, very overpriced. So let's say it was on the market for 400,000. I'd offer 400,000. The second point is, how long is this contract we call an option going to last for as a maximum? So if I'm buying something or doing an option where I want to hold it and keep it, I generally ask for 5 years. I might start for 7 with 7, and then we'll negotiate and it will come down to 5. I don't like going much below that. My sons and I have done them for 4. Now, I have done one for 8, but that wasn't because I wanted to buy and hold it in the same way. It was about getting planning permission to convert something. The third thing, it's called a purchase lease option because we're leasing something. There's a property there which they might well be able to rent if we didn't do the deal. So what are we prepared to give them each month until such time that we buy it, walk away, assign it on, or ask for an extension? So the 3 things: what you're going to buy it for, how long this option contract is going to last for as a maximum, and what you're going to give them each month. Now, the fourth thing is, I don't generally talk about this as one of the main points, but it's something you need to understand. In order for an option to be valid, as it were, you've got to exchange £1 as a minimum. And of course, the solicitors do that. But it's called your option fee. But sometimes they may want more money up front. So although I'm saying you don't need money, sometimes you might, in which case you can choose to walk away from the deal or do it. But let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, they've got a tax bill to pay and they go, look, we'd love to do an option with you, but we've got this £10,000 tax bill to pay that's got to be paid. So you work out in advance what you're going to make over a 5-year period. And generally it's no less than £1,000 a month. Well, certainly not on my watch anyway, but often it can be for more. So let's say it's £2,000 over 5 years. That's going to give you £120,000 profit. Would you still do the deal if you had to spend 10 grand at the beginning? Well, of course you would, because you're going to make 110 instead of 120. So you can work out what your profits are going to be in advance for most strategies, and you can work out whether it's going to be a problem if you walk away. Now, if you walk away from that deal and you don't assign it, sell it, or buy it, the worst case scenario is you make 110 instead of 120. If you buy it, it's not really relevant, is it? Because you'll continue to make that profit. So sometimes there will be a deposit. I would always say, though, that if you pay a deposit up front, you always ask for it to come off the price at the end. If you don't buy it, though, as I just said, and you walk away, you lose that 10 grand. And you've got to look at whether that's okay against the profit that you're going to make. Sometimes it might be that you go, well, I'm not going to give a deposit. They're happy with £1. But if I want to make £2,000 profit a month, I need to do a bit of a refurb. So therefore, I've got to put 10 or 20 grand into it, which I'll borrow off an investor. If I walk away at the end, am I going to be happy with losing that 20 grand? Well, if I'm making 120, yeah, probably I am going to be okay with that. So sometimes there will be money to pay, sometimes there won't. So those 4 things again: what you're going to buy it for if you buy it, that's set in stone at the start, how long it's going to last for as a maximum, what you're going to pay them each month, and whether it's £1 or it's something different. Now, beyond that, an option is whatever the negotiations bring up. So, that is a basic option. They may decide they want a pair of shoes every month. They may decide that they want a bit of the equity if there's an uplift in capital appreciation at the end. They may decide that they want you to pay for a holiday once a year. An option is unique. It's like if I came to you and offered you all a canvas to paint a picture on, but didn't give you a title, they'd all come back different, wouldn't they? That's what an option's like. They're all different. I mean, very rarely will you find two the same. So if I gave everybody listening £50,000 and I said, go and do a deal or go and get some options, there's no way they're going to come back with the same deals. If I gave you I don't know, £5,000 and said, or there was two houses identical next door to each other and both were going to do an option, I can guarantee the option contract would be different.
Yeah, amazing. And I think this is, for me with you, Gillie, was a huge eye-opening moment, is when, you know, usually, let's say, you know, you're on Rightmove and you've noticed that there's a house for sale and a house for rent, and it's like, oh, those are kind of, you know, that might be useful for an option. Yeah. And then when I'm talking to people, they say something like, let's say they say, oh, it's up for 150. I've had a chat with them, blah, 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 blah. They might be interested. And then they say something like, so I think I'm going to offer them 120,000 over 6 years. And this, and I'm like, going back to what you said, is basically you want to offer them what they want. Now, there may be some changes in the background, but inherently, if they want 150,000, you kind of want to see if you can give them 150,000, but on your terms, so to speak.
Yeah.
Because if you try and reduce the price and then do it over a number of years, they're just going to be there going, this is absolutely crackers.
It is. It just annoy them. It's
Exactly.
all about people, isn't it, Emma? It's all about people. So I always describe it, I don't know if you remember, like old-fashioned weighing scales. So you start, let's say it's on for 150. I would very rarely offer less than that. So you start with 150,000. You might ask for 5 years, and you might offer to give them £1,000 a month. They may come back and they might go, 5 years is too much, Gillie. So they drop it to 4, which means the scales are not in balance anymore. Which means I'll probably go, okay, well, if you're going to drop it by a year, that gives me less time for the property to go up in capital with capital appreciation. So I might bring down the price to 145. But I'm only doing that based on their change first. So because I always say to people, you don't always have to be in control, complete control, but you never want to be controlled. There's a big difference. So we want to get the balance right. So will £5,000 make all the difference in the world when you come to get a mortgage if you buy it at the end? Of course it won't. But you're just saying, you know, if you're going to move that, I'm going to move that ever so slightly. And that's how sometimes we bring the price down, because they push the prices differently on something else, whether it be the amount they might want more per month. Or you might say, okay, we won't change the asking price, but if you're going to do it for less than a number of years, we're going to bring down the rents a little bit. So you're just changing it so that the balance is correct. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's so powerful, actually. And it's a silly thing, isn't it? Because sometimes they'll say to you, oh, yeah, well, yeah, it's all fine, but I just want to knock it down 10,000. And actually, it's a bit like kind of working with kids, with animals. If you start just giving yourself away, they're just going to keep taking. And so if they say, oh, yeah, that's fine, we'll do that, they suddenly think, oh, well, you know, maybe I could do this. And they start adding things in. Whereas absolutely, you know, and I talk to that about my mentors as well, from what you said, mentees, is that you have this kind of this seesaw plan. And if they've changed it, it's so simple, isn't it? That they've changed it like that. So therefore, you need to make it something else. And quite often I have been in the situation where I've called you up and said, they've changed this, but I can't think of anything else. What else could I change? And we'll sit there going, well, actually, you know, you can do this. And I think that's really key, because I find myself, and I think knowing yourself and learning about yourself over the years, I am one of these people, and I suppose being a female as well, and mums and things like that, you do tend to, it's a natural thing to give away, isn't it? But in business, and certainly in this scenario, you can't just give things away. That just doesn't work. So yeah, having this kind of visualization of this, seeing it, is really key. And in fact, I just want to mention, so Tima has mentioned a couple of things here, and she said, yeah, great view on control. She's saying that she's really, really loving your content, Gillie. So let's sort of push on with this, because I know this is a huge question that people ask, and Tima is interested as well. I mean, I remember, actually, this did make me laugh. There was somebody who came to me and they said, I've been to Rightmove and I couldn't find any of these purchase lease options you were talking about, Emma. And that kind of made me giggle. they are not, everyone, just in case you're wondering. It does not have a, for rent, for purchase lease options. That isn't out there. So Gillie, where are these? Because as you said, when I first came to you, I thought, why on earth would anyone want to give me a property? And just to clarify, guys, having worked with Gillie, I now have a hotel that has we agreed 800,000. We've spent with investor money, let's say 300,000. Let's say all in with absolutely everything. We're in for 1.1 to 1.2. It's just been valued at 1.75. So it really is
fantastic,
very powerful what you can do. So why on earth would that person have wanted to work with me, Gillie?
Why would they
wanted to find them? Sorry.
Oh, so are we talking about how we find the people to work with us, or are we finding how to find the properties?
So yeah, so if you want to go, basically, let's imagine that we've a bit like me. We've perhaps done a few rent to rents. We've got a bit of money, but we haven't perhaps got a big pot of money just to go shopping for property. And we've heard about this purchase lease option strategy. Where might we go about looking for properties and therefore people who might do a deal with us?
Okay, so first of all, it's about looking for properties. So what I urge everybody listening to do is draw a round circle, a pie chart. Okay, now here's another one of my made up statistics, everybody. So 90% or even more than that of people out there are teaching you to go direct to vendor. And those that have learned with me will know that this is not the main way to find deals. It's absolutely great to go direct to vendor. Now let's look at ways of going direct to vendor. We might do leafleting. How many people have done HMO letters? We might do adverts or go to networking events. We might put posters up, all sorts of different things. A lot of people do leafleting, a lot of people do adverts, and a lot of people write HMO letters. They're the main ones. But the problem with these is that you're not in control. So if I said to you, which I know that I've said many, many times to my students, I want you to aim for a certain number of leads a week. And I always used to say 10, didn't I? So how about 10 a week? I want you to find 10 potential leads a week. Now, if you're waiting for somebody to respond to a leaflet or a postcard or an advert or get back to you from a networking event, you're waiting for them to come to you. Well, that's as good as a smack in the face with a wet kipper, because you're not actually able to say, yes, I'm going to get 10 leads this week. It's all bonus. Those forms of lead generation are great, but let them be a bonus. So if you want to do leafleting, and I know leafleting works for some people, it's like my biggest nightmare. It just doesn't line up with my values, but lots of people make money from it. So if you want to do leafleting, absolutely do it, but let it be a bonus. For all those leads that come in from your leafleting, let them be a bonus. Never let them be part of the 10 a week, because you can't guarantee them. Again, it's about being in control of what you bring in. So if you look at that pie chart, I would suggest that 5%, maybe 10 if you're lucky, will be direct to vendor leads that come into you. You might get one a month, you might get 3 a week if you're really lucky, but none of them are coming in definitely. They're all maybe. So what are we going to do to get leads every week? Now, I love agents, and most people don't teach you how to go to agents to describe or explain a purchase lease option, because A, they don't know how to explain it themselves, and B, they're scared of rejection. Well, we've got to toughen up a little bit, because actually, as long as we're scared of rejection, we're getting in our own way. And the point is, property is all about people, well before it's about property. So if your dynamic is such that you're not very good at having conversations with people, you're a little bit introverted, maybe you're really good at doing something, we're all good at doing things, but we're not all good at doing everything. So there's nothing wrong with not feeling that you have the ability or the skills to describe something to somebody in a way that makes them feel, in a way that makes them like you, even. Because some of us are not, we're just different. Now it's all my dynamic is all people. So I love that side of things. but I need help in other areas because I'm not good at everything. But it's really important that we understand it's about relationship. It's about how we build rapport with people. So if you go to an agent and your attitude is they're all nightmare, don't like agents, they're this, and this, which is what a lot of people think, you're not going to build great relationship with them if that's what's going on in your head. But agents are absolutely fantastic. I want to ask a question to the people out there. How many of you think that motivated sellers, so people who are up the creek without a paddle for whatever reason, go to agents to sell their properties? The truth is, the majority of them do because they don't know what else to do. So of that pie chart, you've got 5 or 10% that are direct to vendor. You've got probably 80% or 85% which are agents, and then 5% we won't find because they've got their head in the sand because they're being, they're ignoring brown letters about repossession. But many, 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 many people go to agents. So what I'm saying is, the idea of property, the idea of options is that we're helping people. We're creating a business and a lucrative one. We're doing it at quite a speed often, and we're helping other people. And I want you to imagine a triangle, but it's an equilateral triangle. And the reason it's equilateral is because you've got the agent at one point, you at another, and you've got the vendor at the other. And they've all got to be equally happy. It's not about profit. It's about being equally happy. So you'll be happy with your profit. The vendor will be happy with their sale price and the rents they're getting in each month. And the agent will be happy because you've paid or someone's paid their commissions and the right amount of commission. So it is all about relationship. And how we find them, there are many ways of finding deals. Okay. Now, I've always said my little, what do I call it? I say to people, my riddle. I never choose to go to a property site, but I get taken to one. What do I use? Well, of course, the answer is Google. Google is my best friend, and I found nearly all my deals by doing Google searches. Now, for those of you that have got Property Filter is an amazing product, and it is like my Google search on steroids. So you can search for things that might be options in Property Filter. With mine, but it costs money, obviously. But with mine, my Google search is a really good place to start. So you might put in Google, fantastic investment opportunity for sale in maybe an area of Kent or Essex or Guildford or wherever you want to look for deals. Now, if you want a slightly wider area, put a county to start with and see what comes up. People often are very, very focused and narrow-minded or tunnel visioned about their area. It's really important to know your area, but it's quite good to have a look at what's around in that area. So you might choose a county or a certain area or a certain part of a city, etc., etc. So you can put whatever you like. You can put a postcode in. But what you're looking for is a deal. I always put fantastic at the beginning. That's just a word I use. You might not choose to use that. You might put fantastic investment, large HMO property for sale in need of refurbishment. And it's like a flipping essay, but it's a play with words. So you want to go to at least page 4, because beyond page 4, they'll probably take you to Guatemala or somewhere under the sea. But and it gets a bit ridiculous, but you will be surprised at the deals you find. Now, if you find nothing, change the words. What I really love, Emma, is when you put fantastic investment property for sale, motivated seller. And people out there don't teach you this, but it'll take you to sites where they are just motivated sellers selling their properties. Every single one says motivated seller, motivated seller, motivated seller. Now, the site that I'm talking about is GAO.com, getanoffer.com. We don't hide anything. We don't dangle carrots. We want you to know all this. Now, obviously, there might not be anything in your area that's on that site at the moment for getanoffer.com. But if you put on Google, fantastic investment property for sale in Guildford, motivated seller, it will only take you to a site if there's one in Guildford that's on on that site. However, you may as well go and have a look anyway. So what you want to do is you want to be and I always say this, I love watching a movie. So I'll sit down and I'll look, I've taught my children to do this. And when you're very relaxed, you just start looking for deals. They go onto Google and you go, oh, that might work, that might work, that might work. Now, the reason you know whether it might work is because before you even start looking for properties, you should have done your due diligence on your area. And people don't do this. You know, Emma, as you know, I've just got my pilot's license. Actually, I don't know if you knew I'd got it, but I've got my pilot's license now. And when I was learning, when I fly onto the base, which was just before I landed, so base and then final, I was coming along here and then I'd go on to final. All I had to look at was runway speed, runway speed, runway speed, runway speed, runway speed. Nothing else mattered. I needed to not be below 75 knots as I was coming along base, because otherwise I could stall, I could have all sorts of problems, and I needed to keep an eye on the runway. By the time I got onto final, I needed to worry about landing. So it was speed, runway, speed, runway, speed, runway, land. And with property, it's area strategy, area strategy, area strategy. And once you've got it so sorted that you know that the area you're going to be acquiring property is X, because the strategy you're going to use to make money is Y, and they work. I always want to say subliminally, but that's the wrong word. Doesn't even mean the right thing. Phenomenally. They are sublime. Okay. And then we go looking for deals. Now, when you're in that place and you know that you need as a minimum a 5-bed property if you want an HMO, because you know what you're going to get for it, because you've decided you want ensuite bedrooms, and you know that they're the ones that will really, really go. You'll have a queue of people waiting outside the door, and the minimum you want is 5 bedrooms because you know that you'll make X in terms of profit. You go looking for them. That doesn't mean you only look for a 5-bedroom house, because you might find a 4-bedroom with several reception rooms that could become a bedroom or 2. So we know what we're looking for when we go out there and start looking. So whilst you're sitting watching that movie and you go, yeah, that might work. It's very expensive, but it's in the right area. The reason it's good to put the expensive ones in is they could be up to their ears in debt. And it could be on the market for £50,000 more than anything else you've ever seen down that street. But if they're in negative equity and you can offer them that £50,000 for a 7-year option contract, remember, you can walk away. You've just saved their bacon, and you're also taking over their mortgage. Some of them you will stop the repossession. How brilliant is that? I'm not saying there's anything wrong with acquiring property once it's been repossessed at a decent price, but we stop that repossession. We stop that nightmare 12 years potentially for those vendors. And sometimes we can give them a bit extra. The joy for me is when you go and you say, I'm afraid the figures have changed, and their crestfallen faces say it all, and you say, I've just worked out I can pay your credit card off as well. So the thing is, finding deals doesn't have to be difficult. Now, those 10 deals you put into your funnel as potentials whilst you're watching that movie, they won't all be options. You have to remember that 1 in 3, they say, fall out of bed as a normal sale. You've got to be looking at least 1 in 10. I say 1 in 40. So if you get 10 leads in a week, that's 40 a month. You'll get a deal. Somebody will do an option with you. Now, there's one person that I used to listen to who used to say, you can offer on anything, just offer low. I don't believe in that. That's just me. I don't want to take anybody for a ride. I don't want to, upset them by offering far lower than they want. And the brilliant thing about us with options is that generally we offer them what they want. It's fantastic. So the great news for you is you're not looking for below market value properties. Can you not see, therefore, that they're the world's your oyster? There are thousands and thousands of deals. The only time I wouldn't offer an option on a deal is if I know somehow that they need their money out. And the reason I wouldn't offer on that is because it's annoying. If I'm selling my property and I need my money out, and they know that, why would they offer me an option when I'm not going to get my money out? So it's about being sensible. It's about being savvy. It's about being kind. It's about being empathetic. It's about having integrity. So all these things together give you an enormous pool of potential option deals at your fingertips. You can go on to Rightmove, but you have to remember that although there aren't that many people doing property, 95% of those that will be going to Rightmove. Now, you could look for something that's been on the market for a very, very long time and hasn't sold because it's on for too much money. Yeah, you could. And let's face it, when you go into Google, many times it will take you to Rightmove. but it might take you to a deal that you would never have even considered because it's on for 2 million. And it's maybe on the commercial site that you will have somehow missed. It may be on the normal site. But the point is, if you put in criteria that means you miss it when you go into Rightmove directly, you're never going to see that deal. But I want to ask a question for anybody listening. If you were to find a deal on Rightmove for 2 million, but you could get it on an option for £1, and you're going to make £4,000 profit a month from it, and if it doesn't go up in value at the end of the period and you can't buy it with no money in, you can walk away. Why wouldn't you do it? Guys, you've got to think about these figures like Smarties in a jar. Until you need to commit to buying something, all you need to be sure of is that you're not overspending, so that if you walk away at the end, you haven't made great profit.
And that's right. Yeah, and that's what I love about you, Gillie, as well, is and it's often not spoken about. It's kind of, people are like, yeah, I can go for this deal, I only have to pay £1. But you've really got to work out that over the time, if you end up, obviously all of us would only ever go in with the want to buy it or to sign it or whatever, but one just never knows, you know, what happens. There may be a black swan event, you know, we never imagined, you know, we'd have a pandemic, all of these kind of things. So you always have to make sure that if for whatever reason you had to walk away from it, you haven't lost money, so to speak, and it's all been okay. And I excuse me, and I think that is, you know, so incredibly key. And I'm just really aware of time. So yeah, we've had some incredible feedback. Yeah, fantastic, love your style. No one talks about being kind and having integrity. Everyone talks about being savvy, and I think that's, you know, really key, Gillie. And like all these things, I think birds of a feather flock together. It's really important to me to have these values for people to be, for everyone to win. Exactly as you said, you talked about it with a equilateral triangle. You know, all of these things are so key. So Gillie, I'm sure we've got lots of people chomping at the bit, wanting to know how they, and gone are the days, I don't know if you still do Clubhouse, where we used to be on Clubhouse, and those were amazing.
They were brilliant days.
You know, stuck in our houses, and we'd sit and we'd all chat, and you know, but nowadays things are sort of pretty much getting back to normal, aren't they? So how can we find you? And if people want to work with you, which they'd be crazy not to want to work with you, where can they find you as well?
Okay, so first of all, anybody that wants to have some free information, if they download Clubhouse, all my recordings on options, mindset, all of it is there for you to listen to. So anybody's welcome to do that. Just look for Gillie Barlow and you'll see my recordings. In terms of what I do now, I do have some courses. One of the things that I'm totally passionate about is helping people. And I do come from a slightly different place to the average, because I think that, you know, we haven't got a promised time on this planet. We're not promised tomorrow. And, you know, too many people, I think, are stuck in their ways of wanting to just get more and more for themselves. But actually, for me, it's about making sure you guys get to where you want to get to. So I've set up something that I would have loved 20 years ago. And this is what we do sometimes, isn't it? We create what we would have loved. And that's what I've done with all my programs. So I've got a membership, which is called HOG, House of Gillie. And it is every single week. And the point of it is you can come to that membership and ask any property relating questions, anything. Now, I'm not saying that I'll be able to answer absolutely everything. I haven't yet found something I haven't answered, but that doesn't mean I won't be able to. But we'll find it out together. And it's about never worrying about having to ask the same question again and again and again and again. I also teach on it. So where people don't have questions, I will go through options again. I might ring some agents. I'll do all sorts of different things to empower the people listening and help them on their journey. Now, that's every week for an hour on Zoom, and it equates to £359 a year. So it's a little bit ridiculous in terms of the cost. It's $29.99 a month. At the moment, people can pull out whenever they want. They don't have to stay. It's all recorded. But I think soon it will be, if I'm honest, probably about a 6-month commitment, but it's just $29.99 a month, and it's just so powerful. And I've done it because I think there's so many people out there who struggle to pay a lot of money to learn, and they're a little bit left to their own devices. And although you can get all the knowledge on the internet, it's that support, it's that help, it's having those questions answered. So that's one of them.
And also with that, isn't it, it's taking the knowledge and aligning it to your personal situation, because we're all so different, aren't we?
Yeah.
We can read books, we can do all of that, but how many of us have read a book, thought, wow, that sounds really good, and really wanted to implement it into our lives, but we just can't see exactly how to implement it into our lives. So yeah,
that's
great.
Absolutely massive, because as an identical twin, you know me, Emma, I'm a firm believer in helping people to understand they're a gift to the world and that we're all unique. As an identical twin, I'm about, I'm the closest to not being unique, but I am. And our uniqueness is really, really precious. But it also means that we've all got our own DNA, we've all got our own stories, whether they're good or bad, and they create things in our heads and our minds that hold us back. Generally, it's only ourselves that hold us back. Sometimes it's something else we can't control, but it's helping people to understand, as you just said, in their circumstances, in their situations, what's stopping them. Is it fear? Is it negativity? Is it lack of motivation? Is it need for perfectionism, which is a fear? Is it lack of self-worth or self-belief? And it's helping people through that so that they're on a starting block, so they're on the diving board and they can literally jump in. And that's why it's so powerful. I have a year-long program, which honestly I set up because I was asked to. You've been on that, Emma. You know how powerful it is and how it's about helping people to pull together in power teams that don't cost money, so that they can be the best version of themselves and do what they should be doing, that line up with their dynamic, so that they can move forward at speed. It's a wonderful, the reason I love it so much is because it's for so few people. I get to mentor you throughout the whole year, and that's monumentally powerful, because generally people get coached, and it's very different to be mentored. Coaching's great, you got coached as well, but it's about that mentorship where I can say, no, do that, instead of faffing around and making them work it out all the time on their own. So that's my year-long program. I have an options training day, which is fantastic. It's a whole day and it's virtual. And the point is, by the end of the day, you should never, ever need another training day. I do, as you said, Emma, allow people that have been on it to come on it again and again and again at no charge, because I think people do shelve things. And on the course, I help you find deals, and I also ring agents so you can hear exactly what I say on the deals that you found or that I've helped you find. So they're very powerful. For people to find me, I'm on Instagram, Gillie Barlow Property. I'm on LinkedIn, Gillie Barlow, or Gillie Barlow Property, I think. YouTube, Gillie Barlow Property. Facebook, Gillie Barlow and Gillie Barlow Property. TikTok. I'm on all of them, and I do put out quite a lot each week. I put out a lot of articles just to help people with their mindset. I put out one this week about how, what to do when people can't find deals that stack. And so, do look me up, do connect with me, because, you can always unconnect if you don't want stuff coming through later, but it's all there to help people. So yeah, that's the best thing to do.
Amazing. So we've had such a lot of lovely feedback, but just some of the ones that we've got a huge list of comments. But so Tima has said, thank you so very much for this session. And Kerry has said, so pleased I had time for this today. What an inspiration Gillie is. I would definitely be following. I think I was meant to find you and feel very blessed. So refreshing listening to you. And Cam has agreed with that too. So Gillie, thank you so much. It's been a little while, hasn't it? With the clubhouse days, our paths would cross a little bit more often, and obviously when I was working with you. So yeah, no, thank you so much for making time today. It's been absolutely lovely, and really I love these sessions, and clearly, of course, I want to help other people, but selfishly, I absolutely love these because they help reinvigorate that kind of creativity, make me start thinking. I've got so many things listed down here that I'm going to go off and follow up with as well. So really,
can I just end with one thing, Emma? So very, very quickly. So for all of you out there, we are going through the worst housing crisis in my lifetime at the moment. And there are so many properties out there that the Home Office will take off you for 5-year contracts with completely passive income, with often very little work to do, that will create enormous amounts of revenues. And I'm teaching people to do this using options that gain 5 to 10 grand profit a month, one deal. So, you know, do understand that this is something that can happen and can be imminent. And it's so wonderful when we can help people as well. So, you know, I really want you all to just be really excited about what's out there and what you can achieve, assuming your mindset is right. And Emma is a classic example of someone who has gone out, and she really rocked it. She came on my year-long program. She did my options training as well. And she went out and had the most amazing stamina, and she was gregarious, and she had vitality and at the same time integrity, and she won because of the person that she is. But people, you know, follow in what she's done because she's an amazing person.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, Gillie. Well, guys, do jump on. Do go and find Gillie on Instagram, LinkedIn. Jump on her courses. And what's great about Gillie is they're really accessible price-wise as well. So take advantage of it and, yeah, do that. So, Gillie, thank you very much again. Oh, and just as a reminder, guys, if you want to listen back to these, you can find, I mean, obviously, these have been live across multiple social media, but I would say the best one to find replays of this is on YouTube. So we do break these down into shorter sessions as well. So do, I'm really rubbish at doing this, but do like and subscribe so that you don't miss out on these. I am really excited. It is now the summer holidays for me. So I think most of you are aware I have a beautiful family, and it is now the summer holidays. So true to who I am, I now take the summer holidays off and spend it with my kids. So yes, I'll be really looking forward to starting it up again in September, probably sort of either early to mid-September. We might have a holiday happening, so I'll have to just see on that one. Yeah, and really can't wait to hear how everyone's had a great summer. And thanks again, Gillie. So take care, everyone.